Thomas Jennings woke up before sunrise on a Saturday, had the whole day free, but he felt the familiar weight of routine settle in his chest. Lived alone in a small apartment not far from the heart of the city. On weekdays, he worked long hours as a software engineer. On weekends, he liked to step away from code and seek out something warm and simple. His favorite refuge was the little coffee shop on Maple Street. It smelled of fresh bread, roasted beans, and early morning hope. By the time Thomas reached the shop, gray clouds had gathered overhead. A light rain tapped on the pavement, drawing thin rivers along the sidewalk. He pushed the door open, and a soft bell tinkled above his head. Inside, the air felt cozy and safe. Wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and the gentle hum of conversation made him smile. He nodded to the barista, an elderly woman named Rose, who handed him a reusable cup. "Your usual?" she asked, in a voice as comforting as a grandmother's hug. Thomas nodded, grateful that some things in life stayed steady. He chose his favorite corner table, the one by the window where he could watch the world wake up. He opened his laptop for a moment, but the rain outside and the soft jazz playing overhead pulled his eyes away. He closed the laptop and folded his hands, sipping the warm coffee. That first taste of dark roast felt like a promise. Today might be ordinary, but it could still hold a small spark. As he settled in, Thomas noticed a little girl sitting alone at a small round table across the room. She had tight black curls pinned back with a bright red clip. In front of her lay a coloring book, its pages scattered with half-finished drawings of flowers, houses, and funny-looking animals. The girl wore a yellow raincoat, even though she was already inside. Her small boots rested on the chair as she leaned over her crayons. She looked busy, but every few seconds she glanced at the door as if hoping someone would walk in. Curiosity pulled Thomas's attention toward her. He wondered where her mother might be. Maybe the woman had just stepped outside to take a phone call. Maybe she would hurry back any moment. Thomas's own childhood memories stirred. He had grown up without a dependable father, and his mother had often had to run quick errands. He remembered waiting on the front steps, heart pounding every time a car door slammed. He knew what it felt like to be small, alone, and brimming with hope. Then a sudden noise broke the quiet. The barista rose, reached past the girl, and accidentally knocked over a steaming cup of hot chocolate. The dark liquid splashed across the floor and trickled toward the girl's feet. The little girl jumped back, startled, and a soft gasp escaped. Her lips. Thomas sprang from his seat. His heart jumped as he hurried over. "Are you okay?" asked gently, crouching beside her table. The girl looked at him with big brown eyes, damp from surprise. She nodded slowly, her lower lip trembling. Thomas knelt and carefully lifted her tiny foot. The puddle of chocolate had not burned her, but it had soaked the tip of her boot. He reached for napkins and dabbed at the spill, making sure she stayed dry. "Thank you, mister," she said in a shy voice. Thomas smiled. He handed her a fresh napkin and a small paper towel. "Here you go. I'm Thomas," he said, offering his hand. The girl stuck out a little hand and gave it a firm shake. "I'm Maya," she replied. Rose appeared behind him, her face full of apology. "Oh, I'm so sorry, dear," she said, patting Maya's shoulder and quickly mopping up the rest of the mess. She offered Maya a new cup of hot chocolate on the house. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Rose whisked away the ruined cup and returned with a fresh one, topped with whipped cream and a sprinkle of cocoa. Maya's eyes lit up. She wrapped her small hands around the warm mug as if it were a precious gift. Thomas tucked back into his chair, his heart still thumping. Maya watched him, curiosity shining in her gaze. After a moment, she spoke. "Do you like colors?" she asked, holding up a red crayon. "I love them," Thomas said. "Red is one of my favorites." Maya's face brightened. She slid the coloring book toward him. "Will you color with me?" she asked. Thomas hesitated only for a second. Then he took the crayon and added a bold, red stripe to a sketch of a big happy sun. The barista and a few other customers watched with gentle smiles. No one rushed them or asked for the table. The rain outside continued, but inside, something soft and warm was growing. Thomas and Maya traded crayons and stories. Thomas learned that Maya lived with her mother, Keisha, and that Keisha worked very hard at the hospital. Maya explained that she sometimes came to the coffee shop when her mother had late-night shifts. She waited for her mother to finish a call or return from an errand. She liked to draw things she imagined: houses with blue doors, trees that reached the clouds, and big hearts to show love. Thomas told Maya about his own childhood. He spoke in simple words, careful not to share anything that might scare her. He told her how he had moved to the city when he finished college and found a job that kept him busy. He told her he did not have a little sister, but he had always liked stories about brave girls. Kaya listened, tilting her head. She said that brave girls were the best because they did things even when they felt a little frightened. Thomas agreed, realizing that he admired Maya's quiet courage. They sat like that for nearly an hour, coloring side by side. Thomas felt a mix of warmth and longing he had not felt in years. He watched Maya's strong strokes of green grass and bright orange flowers. He saw how carefully she shaded in the lines, how she took her task seriously, yet still giggled when her boot left a small wet spot on the floor. Every so often she paused her drawing to peer toward the door, hoping her mother would appear. Finally, Rose spoke softly. "Your mom is here, sweetheart," she said, nodding toward the entrance. Maya turned quickly and waved. A tall woman with tired eyes and kind features stepped in. She wore scrubs and carried a canvas tote bag. Maya dropped her crayon and ran to her mother's side. "Mommy, look," she cried. "Thomas helped me with my drawing." Keisha knelt down to hug her daughter. Then she turned to Thomas, offering him a grateful smile. "Thank you for watching her," she said. Thomas stood and nodded. "It was my pleasure," he said. He felt his cheeks grow warm as Keisha introduced herself. "I'm Keisha," she said, extending her hand. They shook hands, and for a moment, Thomas held her hand longer than he intended. He saw in her eyes both relief and a quiet hope. Maya tugged at Keisha's arm, and Keisha turned her head to give Maya a kiss on the forehead. "Thank you, Thomas," she said again. Thomas packed up his things. He sensed that this chance meeting was more than a random act of kindness. He felt a strange but welcome tug at his heart, as if a new chapter in his life was beginning. Outside, the rain was letting up, and the sky was lightening. He stepped into the damp morning with Maya and her mother behind him, the door closing with a soft chime. As Thomas walked down Maple Street, he carried more than the memory of spilled hot chocolate, carried the spark of connection, the warmth of a child's trust, and the possibility that this simple weekend ritual might change his life in ways he had never dared to imagine. Each Saturday, Thomas looked forward to the small bell over the coffee shop door. He had come to care about those few quiet hours more than he expected. When he walked in that morning, the smell of fresh pastries and coffee felt like home. Through the window, he saw Maya already in her yellow raincoat, her curls held back by the bright red clip. She sat with her coloring book and a box of crayons spread on the table. Her eyes brightened when she spotted Thomas. He waved, and she waved back, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. Thomas nodded to Rose and took his usual cup of dark roast. He carried it to the corner table where Maya sat, but today he paused and brought an extra chair to her table. "Good morning, Maya," he said softly. She smiled shyly and patted the seat. Thomas sat and set his coffee down. He opened his own small notebook, but Maya shook her head. "Play with me," she whispered, sliding him a green crayon. He closed the notebook and took the crayon. "Tell me about what you're drawing," he said. Maya showed him a page filled with tall trees, each crowned by a golden sun. "These are magic trees," she explained. "They give presents to people who are kind." Thomas traced the outline of a tree trunk with his finger. "Kind people have big hearts," he said. Maya nodded, then added bright pink apples too. "One tree. Apples of kindness," she said, smiling. They colored in silence for a while, but the quiet felt warm rather than empty. Every so often, Maya glanced at the door while she chose a new crayon. Thomas did not mind. He understood what it felt like to wait. After a moment, Maya said, "Mr. Thomas, do you like stories?" Laughed quietly. "I do. I love stories." Shyly, she reached for a small book from her bag. It had a soft cover and stickers of butterflies on the front. "My mom reads this to me sometimes," she said. She handed it to Thomas. Thomas opened the book and looked at the first page. It told of a fox who learned to share, of a bird who found courage, and of a mouse who discovered friendship. Read in a low, gentle voice, pausing to show Maya the pictures. As he spoke, Maya leaned closer, tracing the drawings with her finger. When the fox offered berries to his friends, Maya's eyes shone. "That's nice," she whispered. Thomas nodded. "It is. It shows that sharing makes everyone happy." After the fox's story, they turned the page to the bird's tale. The bird was afraid of flying, but its friends cheered it on. Maya tapped the picture. "I like that bird," she said. "Me too," Thomas agreed. He closed the book for a moment. "You know, Maya, courage can be in small things, like drawing a big tree. Even if you're scared, you'll make a mistake." Maya thought about that, then colored a new page with her bold strokes. As the morning passed, other customers came and went, but Thomas and Maya stayed in their own world. He learned that Maya's mother, Keisha, often worked late shifts at the hospital. Maya waited here when her mother finished a phone call or a short break. Most of the time, Keisha left Maya in good care, but on Saturdays she liked to bring her. "Daughter here for a treat?" Thomas admired how brave Maya was, sitting alone in a busy place without fear. Rose brought them fresh pastries without asking. She said nothing, just placed 2 warm muffins on the table. Maya's face lit up, and she broke off a piece to share with Thomas. "Thank you," she said. Thomas bit into the muffin and found it soft and sweet. He looked at Maya and smiled. "You have good taste in muffins," he said. Maya giggled and took another bite. After they ate, Thomas asked if Maya wanted to play a game. She nodded eagerly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small deck of simple memory cards he had brought. The cards had pairs of animals, cats, dogs, elephants, and so on. Maya's eyes widened. "Let's play," she said. They laid the cards face down and took turns flipping 2 at a time. When Thomas found a matching pair of lions, he cheered softly. Maya clapped her hands. When she found a match of elephants, she jumped slightly and grinned. Between turns, they talked. Maya told him about her favorite songs, old nursery rhymes her mother sang, and about the playground near their home. Thomas shared that he sometimes visited the park after work but never stayed long because he felt tired. Maya suggested he come on weekends to see the ducks and feed them crumbs. Thomas promised he would try. He did not know why he cared so much about a little girl's suggestion, but he felt a warmth in his chest each time she spoke. By late morning, Rose announced that the shop would close for a few minutes to restock. The customers stood, stretched, and headed outside. The rain had stopped, and the sun shone through scattered clouds. Thomas gathered the cards and put them back in his pocket. He looked at Maya's stack of coloring pages, each more colorful than the last. He felt a gentle pull in his heart, a wish to protect this bright spark of joy. Maya's mother arrived just as Thomas finished packing away his things. Keisha rushed over, a tired smile on her face. Maya ran into her arms. "Mommy, look at what Mr. Thomas and I did," she said, lifting a page of trees heavy with pink apples. Keisha hugged her daughter and then turned to Thomas. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but grateful. "Appreciate how kind you are to her." Thomas shook his head. "It's my pleasure," he said. "I enjoy spending time with her." Keisha's eyes held a question, and Thomas nodded again. She offered him a small, tired smile. "Would you like to join us for lunch next week?" she asked. "I know Maya loves the pancakes here." Thomas hesitated, surprised, then nodded. "I'd like that." As Thomas walked home under the bright morning sky, he thought about how much these Saturdays meant to him. He looked forward to telling his friends about the magic trees and the brave bird. He imagined exploring the park with Maya, feeding ducks, and sharing stories on a bench under a giant oak tree. He felt happy in a way he had not felt for a long time. That evening, Thomas sat at his desk and wrote in his notebook. But this time, he wrote notes about Maya's favorite games and the storybook pages he wanted to read next. He sketched a plan for a small set of flashcards with her name on them. He even penciled in a quick menu of picnic foods for when the weather was nice again. As he closed his notebook, he realized that his life was changing in gentle, unexpected ways. A simple coffee shop habit had grown into something bright and hopeful. In the days that followed, Thomas checked his calendar for the next Saturday. He found himself humming a nursery rhyme when he cooked dinner. He even practiced reading aloud, making sure his voice sounded warm and fun. He wondered if Maya would giggle when he read the second story about the mouse who discovered friendship. He realized that these small preparations made his heart beat faster in the best way. When Saturday morning came again, Thomas felt a thrill as he walked through the coffee shop door. There was Maya, coloring under the soft light. She looked up and beamed when she saw him. He returned her smile and sat down, ready for another morning of magic trees, brave birds, and sweet muffins. And in simple, ordinary moments, a strong bond was growing, one crayon stroke, one shared story, one gentle gesture at a time. Thomas woke before dawn on Friday, unable to sleep. He lay in bed remembering the laughter of a little girl he had met on Saturday. He thought about her bright eyes, her curls tied back with a red clip, and the way she held his hand when he read her stories. His heart felt full, yet heavy with questions he could not name. He had always enjoyed quiet weekends, reading books and exploring the city. But now, each Friday night, he found himself restless, breathing in the dark room as if waiting for something new to begin. He rose quietly, made himself a cup of tea, and pressed his forehead against the cool window pane. Outside, the streetlights glowed over puddles left by last night's rain. He watched cars pass, their headlights blurring in the glass. In the silence, memories of his own childhood slipped forward like old photographs. He remembered his mother, standing in their small kitchen, stirring oatmeal at sunrise before going to work. He remembered wearing worn-out shoes to school, feeling embarrassed when other kids asked why they were patched. He remembered waiting on the front steps for his father to return, but his father never came. Those memories had shaped him into the careful, steady man he was now. He had built a life of order, a calm routine at work, weekends at the coffee shop, and evenings reading novels on his couch. He had friends, good work colleagues, and a comfortable apartment. He had chosen to avoid relationships that felt messy or risky, fearing that he might be like his own father, absent when needed most. Yet here was this little girl, Maya, whose gentle trust reminded him of what he had lacked. She looked to him, as if he could bring safety and joy, and that idea both thrilled and frightened him. On Saturday morning, Thomas dressed in his usual blue sweater and dark jeans. He left his apartment with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He carried a small cloth bag containing a new storybook about brave explorers and a box of colored pencils. As he walked down Maple Street towards the coffee shop, he rehearsed his greeting. "Good morning, Maya." He wondered if she would share her new drawings. He wondered what her mother Keisha would think. When he pushed open the door, the familiar bell chimed, and the smell of coffee and pastries wrapped around him. Maya sat at her table, her yellow raincoat folded behind her on the chair. She waved as soon as she saw him. Thomas nodded and smiled, then carried his cup of coffee to her side. She patted the empty chair and offered him a crayon, placed his coffee on the table, and put his bag of treats nearby. As they began to color, Thomas asked softly about the new picture in Maya's book. She held up a drawing of a castle made of white marble, its towers reaching into the sky. "This is the castle where kind people live," she said. He admired the delicate arches and the shining moat she had sketched in light blue pencil. When she added a few pink flags on the towers, Thomas said, "That looks like a place where everyone helps each other." Maya nodded and colored the flags more boldly. After a few minutes, Thomas took out the storybook from his bag. He opened to the first page and read the title, The Explorer's Compass. Maya leaned forward, eyes wide. He read of a young explorer who sailed across stormy seas and climbed icy mountains in search of a hidden treasure. Maya listened. Gentle tapping of her foot under the table as Thomas's calm voice filled the quiet room. When he finished the first chapter, Maya asked, "Will there be a map?" Thomas smiled and flipped to a page showing a rough sketch of islands, volcanoes, and forests. He held the book open for Maya to see. They spent the next half hour tracing the map with colored pencils, imagining what the explorer would face. Thomas asked soft questions. "What do you think is in the volcano?" Maya considered, then said, "Maybe diamonds that glow in the dark." Thomas nodded. he said, "diamonds of courage." Maya's eyes lit up as she muttered that was the best kind of diamond. As they read and colored, Thomas felt a tug in his chest. He realized how much he looked forward to these mornings. He felt lighter, happier than he had in months. He also felt a quiet ache. He knew he cared deeply for Maya's happiness and safety. He wondered if he was ready to offer her more than a few hours on Saturday. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in the coffee-scented air, and whispered, "I'm glad you're here." Dear noon, Keisha arrived. She carried a tote bag, and her scrubs hung neatly from her shoulders. She smiled tiredly, but her eyes shone when she saw Maya and Thomas. Maya hopped up and hugged her mother around the knees. Keisha bent down to kiss her daughter's cheek, then looked at Thomas. "Thank you again for reading with her," she said. Thomas stood and packed away his storybook. "It's my pleasure," he said, brushing a bit of hair from Maya's forehead. As they walked outside into the sunshine, Thomas stayed beside Keisha and Maya. They talked about the park down the street where ducks gathered near the pond. Maya insisted Thomas should come feed the ducks with them next time. Keisha smiled and nodded. She asked Thomas if he had any free time on Wednesday afternoon. He thought for a moment and said, "I do. I can come then." Kasha's relief was clear. She said, "That would help me so much." Later that afternoon, Thomas found himself thinking of Keisha. He remembered the warmth in her eyes and the gentle curve of her lips when she smiled. He recalled the kindness in her voice, the way she thanked him without hesitation. He remembered seeing the way Maya looked up at her mother, trusting her completely. Thomas wondered if Keisha felt lonely sometimes, working late nights and early mornings. He wondered if she needed a friend he could be. That night, he lay awake again, this time wondering what could happen if he took a risk. He pictured himself visiting Keisha's apartment with flowers in his hand, offering to cook dinner or help with laundry. He worried, would she accept his help? Would she see him as a safe person? Or would she think him too forward? He knew empathy and warmth, but romance was new territory. He drifted into uneasy sleep, dreaming of castles and glowing diamonds. On Wednesday afternoon, Thomas arrived punctually at the hospital. He found Keisha in a busy hallway, wearing her badge and a tired expression. Maya was not there. Keisha greeted him with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I need to finish some reports, and Maya will be in the playroom." She led him down a corridor to a bright room filled with toys, puzzles, and colorful posters. Maya ran to him with arms open, exclaiming, "Mr. Thomas!" She hugged him tightly. Thomas felt tears prick behind his eyes at her joy. Keisha watched them for a moment, then trotted off to her desk. Thomas sat on a soft chair and placed his bag of colored pencils and a new puzzle on the table. Maya's laughter filled the room as they worked together on a jigsaw picture of a rainbow. Each piece they fit fueled her giggles and his quiet smile. He felt a swell of pride in helping her build something. Outside, through the glass, he saw doctors and nurses hurry by. Inside, all he felt was the calm warmth of a child's trust. After an hour, Keisha returned to check on them. She brought 2 cups of juice and a small plate of crackers. She motioned Thomas to lead Maya in telling a story about the puzzle's rainbow. Maya stood on her chair and spoke dramatically about the colors dancing in the sky. Thomas applauded softly, and Keisha laughed. In that moment, Thomas saw something new, the possibility of being more than a friend. He saw them as a trio, a little family working and playing together. His heart felt both heavy with longing and bright with hope. As he left the hospital that day, Thomas realized his life was no longer complete with Saturday mornings alone. He thought of Maya's question, "Would you be my dad?" He replayed her small voice and trusting eyes over and over. His steps were light as he walked down the street, but inside he carried a new purpose. He would be there for Maya and perhaps for Keisha too. He knew the path ahead would ask for courage, but he felt ready at last to step forward. And in that readiness, he found a warm, steady peace he had never known before. Thomas woke early on Saturday, his mind buzzing with thoughts of Maya and Keisha. He dressed carefully, choosing a clean shirt and his favorite sweater. He packed his small cloth bag with the latest storybook, a new puzzle, and a fresh box of colored pencils. He paused in front of the mirror, took a deep breath, and whispered, "I can do this." The reflection showed a man both excited and nervous, ready to face whatever the morning would bring. When Thomas stepped into the coffee shop, the familiar bell chimed. The warm scent of coffee and baked goods wrapped around him like a soft blanket. He scanned the room. Maya sat with her mother at their usual table by the window. Maya waved energetically, and Keisha offered him a polite smile that held both welcome and relief. Thomas returned the smile and made his way to their table, setting his bag down gently. "Good morning," he said softly. Maya hopped off her chair and ran to him. She threw her arms around his legs in a quick hug. Keisha watched, her eyes soft as she murmured, "Thank you for coming." Thomas knelt to meet Maya's height and ruffled her curls. Maya beamed. "Mr. Thomas, I drew new magic trees," she announced. She handed him a sheet of paper covered in bright green and pink. Thomas studied the picture, smiling. "They look wonderful," he said. "The apples are so pink and shiny." Keisha nodded at the illustrations. She tucked a loose curl behind Maya's ear and then looked at Thomas. "I have some free time today," she said quietly. "If you're free after this, maybe you could join us for a picnic in the park." Thomas felt a rush of happiness. "I'd love to," he said, his voice steady. Keisha smiled wider and took a small notebook from her bag. She wrote something down and handed it to Thomas. "Here's my phone number," she said. "Just text me when you're on your way." After they ordered pastries and juice, Thomas opened the storybook. Today's tale was about a small mouse who found friendship in unexpected places. As he read, Maya leaned close, her head resting on his shoulder. Keisha watched them with a faraway look in her eyes. Thomas read in a calm voice, pausing to make the characters come alive. He acted out the mouse's whispers and the owl's wise words. Maya giggled when he puffed his cheeks for the owl, and even Keisha laughed softly. When the mouse and the owl became friends, Maya clapped her hands. "I like this story," she said. Thomas closed the book. "Friendship can come from a simple act of kindness," he explained. Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Like sharing muffins," she said. Thomas laughed. "Exactly." He offered her a bite of his pastry, and she shared a small piece with her mother. After breakfast, they walked together to the park across the street. The sun shone brightly, and the air smelled of fresh grass and flowers. Maya skipped ahead, collecting small pebbles and leaves. Thomas followed, holding Keisha's hand. He felt the warmth of her fingers and the light chatter of her voice as she talked about her hospital shifts and her love for gardening. Thomas listened and asked gentle questions. He learned that Keisha planted roses in her small balcony garden and sang lullabies to Maya every night. At the park, they found a wooden bench under a large oak tree. Keisha spread a blanket on the grass and took out a basket filled with sandwiches, fruit, and juice boxes. Maya sat in the middle, her eyes bright as she chose her favorite sandwich, peanut butter and strawberry jam. Thomas and Keisha each picked a seat on either side. As they ate, Thomas told a funny story about a squirrel he saw stealing a donut from a trash can. Maya laughed so hard that she nearly dropped her sandwich. When the meal ended, Keisha pulled out the puzzle Thomas had brought. It was a picture of a rainbow over a field of flowers, with butterflies dancing around. She handed Thomas one piece and Maya another. They spread the pieces on the blanket and began fitting them together. Each time they found a match, Maya cheered. Keisha and Thomas smiled at each other, their eyes sharing a quiet joy. As they worked, a soft breeze rustled the leaves overhead. Maya pointed at a butterfly that fluttered near them. It landed on her finger for a moment before flying off. Stared in wonder. Thomas gently picked a wildflower nearby and handed it to her. She tucked it behind her ear and grinned. Keisha reached into the basket and pulled out a small container of hand sanitizer. She wiped Maya's hands and then offered the container to Thomas with a gentle laugh. Once the puzzle was complete, Thomas looked at the finished picture, shining rainbow parched in bright colors. "It's perfect," he said. Maya beamed. Keisha nodded and said, "You always bring so much fun, Thomas." Thomas felt his heart swell. He knew these words were more than thanks. They were acceptance. He looked at Keisha and said, I enjoy every moment. Time passed too quickly. Clouds gathered overhead and the first drops of rain began to fall. Keisha gathered the blanket and the puzzle pieces, while Thomas scooped up the sandwiches and juice boxes. Maya ran to the bench, pretending to be chased by raindrops. They hurried back to the coffee shop doorway, laughing as the rain pattered around them. Inside, Rose handed them fresh towels to dry off. The three stood together, warm and cozy despite the storm. Keisha glanced at her watch. I have to get back to work, she said reluctantly. She picked up Maya and hugged her tightly.
Maya
Wrapped her arms around her mother's neck, and Keisha turned to Thomas. Thank you for today, she said softly. Thomas met her gaze. Thank you for inviting me, he replied. Maya looked between them and whispered, I had the best day. Keisha smiled at her daughter and then at Thomas. Would you come again next week? She asked. Thomas nodded without hesitation. I'll be here, he promised.
asked Keisha.
And Maya left. Thomas felt a gentle warmth settle in his chest. He watched them walk away until they disappeared around the corner. Later that afternoon, Thomas sat at his desk and thought about the day. He reviewed the notes in his phone, Keisha's number, ideas for new puzzles, and picture books. He felt a new kind of happiness, one that came from sharing moments with others. He realized he looked forward not only to Saturdays but to Wednesdays, picnics, puzzle afternoons, and many more simple joys. That evening, he prepared a small surprise, a handmade card with pictures of magic trees and pink apples. He wrote a note, I'm happy we're friends. See you soon. He folded it carefully and placed it on his cluttered coffee table. He felt a gentle peace as he closed his eyes that night. His dreams were filled with rainbows, butterflies, and the sound of Maya's laughter. By the time Saturday arrived again, Thomas felt a comforting excitement. He hurried to the coffee shop, carrying his card and a new collection of storybooks. When he opened the door, Maya was already there, coloring something special. She looked up, saw him, and her face lit like the sun. Thomas walked over and knelt beside her table. He placed the card before her. Maya touched it gently, then looked up at him with wide eyes. He smiled and said, I brought new stories and a card for you. As Maya opened the card, Keisha entered behind him, her eyes soft with gratitude. Thomas felt a strong sense of belonging and joy. In simple act, reading, coloring, picnicking, and sharing, he had found a new purpose. He realized that family could be built with small moments, trust, and love. And in that realization, he knew he had taken a step toward becoming the person both Maya and Keisha believed he could be. ChatGPT said. Thomas felt a gentle flutter in his chest as he pushed open the coffee shop door one crisp Saturday morning, carried the small card he had made for Maya, and a thick storybook wrapped in brown paper. The air inside was warm, scented, with fresh muffins and roasted beans. Maya sat at her table, her curls escaping from the red clip as she hummed softly. Keisha kneeling beside her, helping Maya trace the letters of her name in crayon. Both looked up when Thomas stepped in there, faces lighting up like sunrise. Maya hopped from her chair and ran straight into Thomas's arms. He scooped her up and spun in a circle. She squealed with delight, her laughter echoing softly against tiled floors. Good morning, he said, setting her down gently. He handed her the wrapped storybook. Brought a surprise? Maya's eyes widened, and she peered at the neat brown paper tied with string. For me? She asked. Thomas nodded. Open it. She pulled at the string and unfolded the paper. Inside lay a storybook titled The Brave Little Fox. Maya ran her small fingers over the cover and then pressed it to her cheek. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, she said, her voice full of wonder. Keisha smiled as Thomas took a seat beside them. You didn't have to, she said softly. Thomas tucked a loose curl behind Maya's ear. I wanted to, he replied. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the handmade card. Maya grabbed it with both hands. On the front, he had drawn magic trees with pink apples just like hers. Inside, he had written, Dear Maya, I'm happy for our adventures. You and your mom are important to me. Love, Thomas. Maya traced the letters with her finger and then looked up at Thomas. "This is for me?" she asked. Her voice trembled, with a mix of surprise and joy. "Yes," he said. "I made it for you." Maya flung her arms around his neck. "I love it," she whispered. Keisha's eyes grew bright, and she took a small tissue from her bag. She dabbed at her cheeks and turned to Thomas. "You have brought so much happiness to her life," she said. "And to mine." Thomas reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. He felt warmth spread through his body, settling into a deep place he had never known. He wanted to say so many things, but the words came out softly. "I care about you both," he said. "Ah." Maya pulled back, studying his face. She climbed onto his lap and nestled against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling the small, steady beat of her heart. Some neighbors trickled into the shop, murmuring greetings to Rose the barista. Outside, sunshine poured through the windows, illuminating tables and chairs. Thomas opened the storybook to the first page and began to read. His voice was calm and clear. He told the tale of a little fox who felt different from the other animals, who discovered that bravery was not about loud roars, but quiet acts of kindness. Maya listened with rapt attention, her head resting on his shoulder. Keisha watched them, her eyes shining with gratitude. Each turn of the page seemed to weave a gentle spell around the three of them. When Thomas finished the story, Maya clapped her hands. "That fox was brave in his own way," she said. Thomas nodded. He found his true family in the friends who accepted him. Maya thought about that. "Family is people who love you," she said. Thomas realized then that Maya was building her own small definition of family. He closed the book and tucked it under his arm. He looked at Keisha, and in that moment, time slowed. He felt his heart swell with a mixture of hope and fear. He took a shaky breath. "Keisha," he began, his voice gentle, "I have something important to tell you." Keisha's eyes met his. She tilted her head, waiting. Maya looked up at them, curiosity gleaming in her big brown eyes. Thomas brushed a finger along Maya's hair, and then knelt so that he was eye level with her mother. "This morning, Maya and I have shared stories, laughter, and dreams," he said. "She asked me once if I could be her dad." Maya's eyes widened, and she looked at him, then at her mother. Thomas paused, letting those words settle. "Her question touched my heart more deeply than I can say." Keisha's breath caught. She placed a hand on Maya's back, steadying her. Thomas clasped Keisha's hands in his. "I have never felt this kind of love before," he continued, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I want to be here for Maya always. I want to help guide her, protect her, and love her. And I want to be here for you, too." He looked deeply into Keisha's eyes. "Would you let me be a father to Maya? Would you let me build a family with you?" Silence filled the shop for a moment. The soft hum of conversation faded as their world narrowed to that small space between them. Maya reached up and touched Thomas's cheek. "Psst, Mr. Thomas," she said softly. "Will you be my dad?" Her words were small but strong, full of hope. Thomas swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes," he said. "I will be your dad, Maya." He hugged her tightly, then turned to Keisha. Tears glistened in her eyes as she took a step closer. She placed her hand on his cheek and whispered, "Yes, I want that too." The shop around them felt alive with warmth. Thomas felt his whole body relax as if a long-held breath had finally been released. They embraced, three hearts pressed together in a moment of perfect trust. Keisha laid her head against Thomas's shoulder. Maya wrapped her arms around both of them. The gentle clatter of cups and plates faded into a soft background melody. In that embrace, they formed something new. Thomas felt an enormous gratitude for the path that had led him here. He thought of his own mother, who had done her best in a small kitchen, and how he had longed for a father. Now, he had the chance to give Maya the love and care he had once missed. When they finally stepped apart, Maya tugged at Thomas's hand and led him to a small table by the window. She retrieved her coloring book and crayons. Thomas sat down beside her, and Keisha patted the seat next to her daughter. Maya handed him a blue crayon and began to draw. They built magic trees and castles of marble. They colored bright rainbows and glittering diamonds. Laughter and quiet conversation filled the air. They spoke of picnics yet to come, of bedtime stories waiting on the shelf, and of adventures in the park with ducks and wildflowers. As the morning turned to afternoon, Rose served them fresh pastries. On the house's small gift from the coffee shop that had witnessed their journey, the three of them shared muffins and juice, talking about the days ahead. Thomas promised to read every Saturday and to help with puzzles on Wednesdays. Keisha promised to cook dinner at his place sometimes and to share her balcony garden's roses. Maya promised to teach him her favorite songs. Each promise wove another thread into their growing tapestry of family. The day ended as it began, with simple moments that carried deep meaning. Thomas walked home that evening with Maya's hand in his and Keisha's arm around his waist. The sun was low, painting the sky in colors they had drawn together. He felt a steady warmth in his heart, no longer a lonely ember, but a bright flame fueled by love and hope. He knew there would be challenges ahead, papers to sign, schedules to coordinate, days when tears and fears might arise. But he also knew that together they could face anything. That night, as Thomas lay in bed, he thought of Maya's small question and the answer that had changed his life. He thought of Keisha's kind eyes and the promise they had made. He felt a profound peace settle over him. In simple English, in small acts of kindness, they had built a real family. And in that truth, Thomas understood for the first time what it meant to belong. He closed his eyes with a gentle smile, ready to step into tomorrow with the two people who had melted his heart and made him whole.